Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video, and in this one, I am going to be going over my Season of Discovery level 40 dueling / solo PvP tier list. OTK has just announced a $20,000 dueling tournament, and the Stranglethorn Veil free-for-all world PvP zone looks really epic, so I wanted to tailor the list around which specializations would be, catered the best in this type of environment. Now, we've got Affliction Warlock. The main problem with Affliction Warlock is a lot of your new runes, and do take into account that runes have basically decided which specializations are good or bad, and I'm assuming that that trend is likely going to continue at level 40. Affliction does not have the Metamorphosis rune, which makes you really tanky against melee attackers, which is going to be really tough, and a lot of your new damage runes are very mediocre. I think that it could still decent at just dotting, running away, and spamming fear, but I think likely demonology is going to be better. So for me personally, I think demonology or SL. I'm going to put affliction at about B. I think if you're going deep affliction, it's just going to be squishier and harder to deal with some situations than obviously SL. Arcane has an insane amount of burst damage. Deep freeze is returning, and I believe it's available to all mages, which could make it absolutely crazy. But I think Frost is likely going to be a bit better, at least for dueling, because it's tankier, and you're probably going to have a little bit better control. So Arcane is probably really cheesy one-shots. If you're running solo PvP and Stranglethorn Veil, though, you might want to have some healing runes on. For me, I think I'm going to throw it up into B along with Affliction. I think it's going to have similar issues in terms of dueling. Also, a lot of melee DPS are getting an insane amount of mobility on this patch at level 40, and so you might not actually be able to get the distance that you need in order to make Arcane work as effectively. Arms Warrior, there's some runes that are still unconfirmed. Right now, I'd say your main problem is lack of self-healing, but if Enraged Regen comes through, it's going to give you at least a little bit. The fact that now you can use your mobility in combat, and I believe regardless of any stance as well, is really nice. So you're not caught in these situations where a hunter is just running away from you and you're kind of just stuck waiting for intercept. I think Arms Warrior could likely be better than it has been. I mean, Arms Warrior has never been super powerful in dueling, but it definitely could be better than it was in original classic, I think. But I think the healing holds it back. So where do I want to put this? Maybe the best of the B tier. Again, it's good to rank ranged against ranged and melee against melee, I think, when you're generally going over a tier list like this. But I think the self-healing will be notable in solo PvP environments, and you'll probably get kited out by a lot of these other self-healing ranged DPS. Assassination Rogue, you're getting Shadow Step, but so is every other spec, and I think Subtlety is probably going to have more burst damage. There might be niche situations where Assassination could be better, but I don't think it's going to end up being super spectacular. I'm putting it here on the B, kind of just going to be kind of mid. Balanced Druid is going to be absolutely busted, assuming that nothing changes. You're getting access to a bunch of new talents that are going to scale Star Surge damage up even higher. Wild Growth's healing is crazy. You can get Dream State for mana return if that ever really does become a problem. Moonkin to me is insanely good at the moment, so I'm throwing this up onto S. It's got everything for you in order to attack from ranged. You've got that extra range that nobody else has. You can just stay out of range of anybody trying to attack you. It's really good. It's remarkably powerful. Druid here, which is Bear Druid, I don't really know, honestly, with Bear Druid. And if it was retail WoW, I'd say Bear Druid is astonishingly good, but you might be able to get Berserk, I believe, for Feral, and maybe it works for Bear as well, which could be an insane little window for you to win some duels. It's probably gonna be really good against physical attackers, but not very good against ranged. So I'm kind of putting it down a little lower. I'm honestly surprised that it was on this tier list. I found a classic level 40 SoD tier list, so Bear Druid included here, maybe for Warsong Gulch or something like that, but for dueling and world PvP, I think Moonkin's probably going to be more versatile, and probably even Feral Druid more versatile than Guardian. Beast Mastery Hunter, unless they nerf the pet, this thing is really good. I think you're going to lose to Boomkin because they can hibernate your pet and then drop you. But classes that can't get control of your pet, you're just going to run them over. So for me, I think Beast Mastery Hunter is likely going to be really good. You're also getting Trap Launcher. And I believe that your traps aren't going to trigger cooldowns on each other. So you can, use a snare trap and then use a normal freezing trap, and you can launch them from far away, which could enable a lot of, different gameplay than what you had previously in Cataclysm. Combat Rogue, I think it's pretty similar to Assassination. I think that it's going to, it's got the same type of runes coming in with Shadow Step, but I think Subtlety is going to be higher burst, so it's probably going to be better suited. It'll probably feel like a little bit more mid-level. Demonology for dueling and world PvP, I'm putting it up on the S tier. I think the instant cast Drain Life in the meta form with the dots enables you to win a lot of 1v1 situations, and that's just continuing to be the case, even though a lot of the new Warlock runes aren't like spectacular. I think that self-sustain mechanic, similar to how Boomkin can wild growth itself and run around, you can Drain Life and run around. BM just kills the target before it even does anything. I think those types of mechanics enable you to be the best at dueling and world PvP scenarios. Destro, you got to cast way too much. I feel like you have to cast way too much. Its defense is not as good. I'm putting Destro much lower. Although Chaos Bolt can hit really hard in an environment where you're like 1v2ing, juggling that and trying to get it off. I mean, maybe. Nah, it might be higher than this. This might be harsh. I think this might be harsh for Destro, but I think Demonology will outscale it, and if Affliction's like instant way of rotting targets will be way better. Destro has just not really ever been that good in Classic. I don't think the new runes are going to really do that for dueling or for like 1v3 in world PvP. Disc Priest, absolutely insane bonkers spec. This is just the best spec in the game, I think. You're getting pain suppression. You can also run Dispersion if you're solo PvP and dueling, because Dispersion is going to give you mana back and it's usable while you're stunned, and you can just you're going to be insane. Disc Priest is going to be like one of the best 1v1 specs in the game. It's going to be ridiculously broken. Along with Moonkin, it's absolutely disgusting. You're like a Wrath of the Lich King level priest at this moment. Ellie Shaman, you're not really getting a lot. I feel like they didn't really give you anything like exciting rune wise as Ellie. You're getting Maelstrom Weapon, which is like okay for dueling, because if you're stuck auto attacking, you're gonna have a way to get to some casted spells, which could definitely be better for it. And you're likely going to be pretty decently durable. I think with the ability to also heal yourself, that you're probably going to be better than some other casters. And with Ghost Wolf and being able to move around, you're probably going to be a little bit better than other casters. So I'm putting you above B tier for those reasons, but a lot of it is hard casted, unlike these ones that is mostly instant. So I think you're not going to be S tier. Enhancement Shaman, same type of deal. Now, it depends on how they go with this, because if they make the two-handed spec actually like seriously powerful, because it seems like, to me at least, the direction for a lot of balance in this game has been like, if something was previously considered a meme, they've overbuffed it to be really OP, like Moonkin, for example. So they might take this two-handed weapon build and be like, you know what? This was a complete meme before. We're making it the best thing ever, and it could be really crazy. Now, Maelstrom Weapon on Enhance is really good because it gives you instant cast spells and range damage, but your mobility is more limited, so you're going to struggle in situations of like getting to a Boomkin or getting to a Hunter, and even probably in some cases getting to a Warlock. It really depends on how durable it is, so if it can actually get to the target, and how good the two-handed build is. So this one's really tough for me. I'm going to put it on A tier for now, below Ellie a bit, but it's mostly because of the healing, I think, that will enable it better than these other melee. But the mobility is better on these ones, so it's probably like matchup dependent really overall. This is me trying to consider all situations. Also, stealth in world PvP is probably more valuable than what Enhance can bring, to be honest, for a combat or assassin, but I think when we get to sub, you'll see where we're going with this. Feral Druid is crazy. Feral Druid is getting Berserk. Feral Druid's Tiger's Fury is also going to be an insane cooldown. I just geared my Feral Druid at level 25, and I was thinking, man, why'd I do this? Boomkin is so good. Why'd I gear Feral? Because I thought Feral was going to be like the best dueling spec. I wanted to get ready for duels and stuff, and then Boomkin just ended up being broken. I was like, man, I just wasted all my time gearing. But maybe not, because at level 40, with Berserk and with Tiger's Fury being a real cooldown through your runes, I think you could absolutely demolish people. You're going to have the extra mobility in cat form while running around outside. You're going to be able to spam Sunfire also if you want to go into like ranged build options for it, and it's going to make your things cost 0 energy, so you can just run around spamming Sunfire at the speed of light, going like this, like you're a Boomkin in cat form basically. So I actually think Feral Druid will probably be an S tier melee DPS for this type of content, and I'm actually excited to try it out for that reason. Fire Mage, again, I don't know how this new system is working, because you've got runes and then you've got like those glyph things that can apply a new ability. So if Fire Mage gets access to Deep Freeze, it could be good, but I feel like Fire Mage's burst is lower, its survivability is lower, and I think those are more important in world PvP. So for me, Fire Mage is probably coming in more mid, whereas Frost Mage I think is going to be like really good. I think its survivability is way better. Its kiting is way better for melee DPS. The control that it has, it probably is going to struggle with Warlock still, I would assume. It might even still struggle with BM Hunters is probably going to struggle with everything on the S tier. So I think it's fair to say that it's probably not going to be like completely S tier at this bracket, but Deep Freeze is definitely going to carry it. I think its healing and its sustain is likely where it's going to struggle when you're comparing it to these specializations. Fury Warrior, pretty similar to Arms. I don't think it's going to be that great at dueling. I'm putting it down here onto the C tier. I think Arms is probably going to be a bit better. Just not really a lot of like Poggers runes coming in for you, unfortunately. Holy Paladin is getting Sacred Shield, which is, you know, really broken Wrath of Lich King. It's what's making Holy Paladin like the best thing ever. But obviously, I don't know if you'd want to duel as Holy. So it's like really tough to rank this for me. Now, you could do like a Shakadin build, and that's probably like almost a Disc Priest. But I would say it's not as good as Disc Priest for like dueling and stuff like that. So I think for dueling, you probably want to avoid it. If you're playing Holy, it's just not going to do a lot of damage. Same thing with Holy Priest. Now you're getting Spirit of Redeemer, which lets you jump into Angel for a few seconds. I'm not sure if it's going to be 30 or 10. It really depends on how they want to tune it. I've seen a lot of people complaining about it being 30, so it might go down from 30. It's going to be a really good healer, I think, in this patch. But when it comes to dueling, it doesn't really do a lot of damage. And you know, it's more tilted towards the healing end than the damage end, unlike Disc. So it's probably not going to be a great pick. The Healing Mage specialization could likely be really good for like trying to 1v5 people and dotting them all up with Living Flame and trying to keep yourself sustained, like you're basically doing like a dungeon solo AoE farm or something like that. It could actually be really good in those environments. I think for that reason that I'm actually kind of bumping it a bit higher than Arcane or Fire. My experience now with multiple expansions in PvP is that like these self-healing mechanics generally do make you really powerful. Frost is tankier, has probably more burst elements, but they're probably pretty close. Marksmanship Hunter depends on the tuning that they do. Again, you get Trap Launcher like BM, but if the pet is more valuable than you, BM will be better than Marksman. But if they nerf the pet, Marksman could easily jump up, and the fact that you've got range over other people is a really big advantage. But do note that a lot of these classes have way more mobility than before, so it might actually be difficult. I think Marksman is probably going to be kind of mid at the start. Maybe the best of the mid though, maybe less than Affliction because of the instant healing that it's going to have compared to those specs. Probably just kind of mid. Prop Paladin, really tough to say unless we want to call it Shakadin. We could call it Shakadin and then put it here. It's probably going to be pretty good with Sacred Shield, honestly. And you probably do like a Sword and Board Ret though, I think, if you were going to do Prot, you know, quote unquote Prot Pally. It's actually probably not that bad. It's probably good. I think with Sacred Shield and Avenger Shield, you're going to actually have a decent amount of damage and control. That it's probably not terrible, but mobility is pretty limited. But the healing, I think, is going to be what carries. We'll consider this like a melee. I think we'll put it like somewhere here, maybe. Prot Warrior, honestly, I don't know. Prot Warrior is a tough one for me. It is entirely possible that Prot actually is the best dueling and best world PvP spec. I don't know enough for it. Wasn't considering it on this list, honestly, because when I formed this list. So I'm going to put it here with Guardian Druid for now. I think, again, healing is probably going to be the issue. But in situations where you're like fighting multiple melee, it's probably not going to be that bad. Resto Druid, it's kind of like Boomkin. You can take the same types of runes along with it, but I think the damage runes from Moonkin Talent Tree are going to be better than the healing runes from Resto specifically. So it's probably not going to be like super fantastic, but but you're going to beat a lot of these classes that can't heal and sustain. That's the funny part. So I think I'm going to put you on A tier. Just because, you know, you can run like a Star Surge rune, you can run some damage runes, and you'll probably beat these classes that can't heal, just because you can heal. And eventually your Star Surge will kill them. But I think Boomkin will probably kill them faster and have a very similar amount of healing output that it's not really worth being Resto over Moonkin. But Resto is, you know, even on current expansions of WoW, Resto Druid is notoriously bad for just world PvP, destroying, you know, melee attackers that can't heal. Ret is probably going to be insane. Your main issue is mobility, but you still have Avenger Shield and Sacred Shield. Sacred Shield on a Ret, it could be absolutely crazy. I'm going to throw you up here with Enhancement on the A tier. Again, I think mobility of Feral is probably going to make you a better melee DPS. But I think Sacred Shield is likely going to be, you know, like similar to what the level of the Star Surge rune was. Resto Shaman, I don't think you can do as much instant damage as Resto Druid. So you're probably going to struggle a bit. Like maybe you're better than Holy Pally, maybe you have more damage. Again, probably not a good idea to try and do it as Resto, but you could. It's probably going to feel a little better than Holy Pally and Holy Priest for world PvP or dueling. Shadow, you know, the main problem is the Shadow and Disc are just so similar to each other. You're getting Shadow form, which I guess is like the main difference between Disc and Shadow. Getting Dispersion is nice because it's going to help your mana out. And you can still just offensively purge, which not a lot of other casters can do. And you have decent healing. And I think with Dispersion to survive some burst moments, you could be actually pretty decent. Maybe it's fair to put you like, I think you're above Ellie, maybe even above Mage or in the middle of Mage for dueling. I worry about if you get swarmed, but maybe just AoE fear and you can take control of the situation. Shadow is likely going to be pretty decent, I would think. Subtlety Rogue, definitely an S tier melee DPS. It's insane burst. It's going to have Shadow Step now. It's going to be really crazy how it's able to move around and gank things. Like, I'm very worried about fighting these types of things on my little Feral Druid to see these things pop up. It's somewhere in here. I don't know if I want to say it's better or worse because I think Feral will have better matchups against more things, but specifically a sub will like maybe counter Feral. Like Feral will be better in almost everything else, but sub will counter Feral. Survival, getting the same types of trap benefits as the other Hunter specs, but you're melee. You've got like decent control and like AoE snares and roots and stuff like that, which can be really good. I'm worried about your sustain. I think because of your sustain that you're probably not going to be like spectacular. So I'm putting you down here onto the C tier, I think, for now. And those are my initial assessments of level 40, having looked at the runes, looked at some of the gear that's available, and the types of areas that you're going to be going into combat. And again, this is a prediction for that, because if they tune things differently, it could be completely different, but I'll do my best to keep this list up to date with you guys as I do all of my other lists. So I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion. It's get your brains going for what to prepare for level 40. I'm personally going with the Feral Druid. I think the Berserk thing is going to be really nuts, and I want to give it a go. And I also got best in slot level 25 Feral stuff, so I'm in a good spot to go with that. But other than that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.